Hi and welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is Jana de Barn. I'm Manon, I'm a programmer, horsey girl and a knitter, and it's the knitting that we talk about on this channel. I really wanted to record with natural light, daylight, where you can see in the window at the back there's a tiny bit left, but it's basically sunset. So go for timing once again. So for today, we are going to go through some patterns for, drum roll, men's knitting patterns. Because in all of my knitting patterns roundups that I've done up until now, it's been for women. Because, okay, let's be honest, 99% of you that watch this are women, according to the YouTube stats. So unless you're a man that is looking through your girlfriend's account, then I wouldn't know. But I had a few disappointed comments of people that wanted more men's patterns. And also, I mean, we all have brothers, husbands, boyfriends, fathers, kids that might be boys as well. Anyway, there's enough men in our lives, and maybe if you're not a man, if you're not the 1% that, of the viewers that is a man, then you know men. And there might be some of those that you really love and that you might want to knit something for. So I've been looking for patterns that I think look really nice, that I would want to knit for my husband, my brother, my dad, and this is the 9 that I think are really nice that I want to talk to you about. And then one more disclaimer before we start. I have not included any of Petite Knits men's sweater patterns in here because I think everyone knows Petite Knit and everyone knows she has men's sweaters. If you didn't, go check it out. She has some really, really lovely ones. I almost knit the Northland sweater for my husband from her. You get at the end of the video which sweater it will be. It's the last one we're going to talk about. I was not planning to knit that for him. I was planning to knit that for me, but okay. However, that sweater by Petite Knit is a very simple one. It's great. Then there's also the Moby sweater that looks really great. The Dagmar one, and you could do that one as a zipper one as well. There's also the zipper sweater. And she also has the Esther sweater for men's proportions. So, I mean, there's a lot there as well. So if you want to go for a designer that is known, trusted, then that is the even like me, some other designers, other patterns, something a bit different, then keep on watching, grab your tea, your coffee, your hot chocolate, whatever it is that is cozy, and your knitting, and let's dive in. I have my notes over there, so I'm not going to look at you while we talk about this. I'm sorry. But we are going to start with the Johnny, which I think is a funny name, but it's really beautiful. It's designed by Sandi Rosner, and it's this beautiful, really traditional Aran fisherman's sweater. It's also in a worsted weight, so it will knit up pretty fast. I'm currently working with the worsted weight yarn paired with the mohair as well, so it's like Aran officially, and it's so fast. I mean, that is glorious because let's be honest, most men will tend to be a bit bigger than women, so there is more knitting to do, and that is quite a bit of work. So we want to use maybe bigger yarn if we don't want to be knitting forever. I mean, if you want to do something in fingering yarn, be my guest. But I think I would like to go for something a little bit bigger than what I usually use. I usually do fingering and mohair or something like that. But for so much more knitting, I think I would go for something slightly at a heavier weight. Anyway, back to the Johnny. Sorry for the interruption. This pattern is quite new. It's just been released in October 2025. There's no patterns on Ravelry. However, it's sold through the Quince & Co website, and I'm wondering if people are buying it from there, not on Ravelry, so maybe not putting projects on Ravelry. It's very new, so I'm sure people have made this one and just not registered it. It's too beautiful to not have been made yet. Or people have not finished it, and that's why it has 0 projects. I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. It would cost you €8.95. I will also put the dollar amount on screen so that you can see that. And it is knitted on 5mm needles. That's a US 8. And the gauge is 19 stitches in moss stitch. But you also have to do another gauge swatch, and that's a honeycomb stitch swatch, and then you need 36 stitches in honeycomb for 12.5 centimeters, so 5 inches. The usual amount of stitches I will say for the gauge is for 10 centimeters or 4 inches. The suggested yarn is from Quince & Co. It's their Hawk, how do I pronounce that? Hawk yarn, which is 60% alpaca and 40% merino. It is a tweed yarn. You can see it in the pictures. It's got those little flecks of, I don't know if it's white or yellow, but it might also be the lighting that makes them look yellow. I don't know, but I think a tweed is a really nice idea. And then for any yarn that is suggested that is a worsted weight, a month ago I had no idea what to suggest to you. However, for the test knit I'm doing now, I have looked into worsted weights. I've seen what other test knitters are using. So I'm personally using the Rerum Natura's Gilead, which is quite a sturdy yarn. It's not rustic. I mean, it's merino. It's French merino from Arles and Portuguese merino for certain colors, which adds a little bit of the dark. I mean, they are black merinos, the Portuguese ones, so they add a little bit of darker wool in there, and it gives this very subtle marling effect in the wool. It's really beautiful. Not every color has this, so check out the colors if you want this or don't want this, and choose accordingly. But that's a really, really good yarn for this type of project. It will really form beautiful cables. So I can personally recommend that one. But same sort of weight is Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino, of course. And then some test knitters are using the Filcolana Peruvian, and it looks gorgeous. It's Highland wool, and it looks very, I don't know, soft and buttery and almost a bit silky. I don't know, it might be some of the pictures, but it looks really beautiful. So, not tried this one myself, but it looks really awesome. For the sizes, I have to say, the men seem to have the same problem as the women. The size inclusivity is not always great for the patterns. For this one, it is. It has bust circumference measurements for this sweater will range between 91.5 centimeters to 171.5 centimeters. So that's a very decent range. And it's supposed to be worn with 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease. I mean, if you fit in that size range, do whatever positive ease you like. But the model in the picture is supposed to be wearing this with 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease, so it gives you an idea of what it looks like with that suggestion. This pattern comes in English, and the construction is fairly simple. It's bottom up, and you will sew the top, what's it called? The shoulders, sew those together, and then do the sleeves bottom up as well, and then sew them onto the armhole. And the reason this is done is so that it's strong. It's to get like a very sturdy construction, because we all like seamless top down. It's easy, yes, absolutely, but the downside of that, of course, is that with wear, because there's no seam to make sure that it's structured and stays in place, the stitches will start to stretch more all over your shoulder instead of just at the seam. So that's the downside of seamless, and that's why the designer for this one has chosen to go with a more traditional bottom-up construction. Considering all the cables and the weight of the yarn, I can understand why. I think it's the smart way to go. Okay, we have been joined by Archie, and my husband is working now back there, which is really weird. It's the first time I'm recording while someone is in the room other than a dog, but the dog can't understand what I'm saying, so, well, at least we think so. But anyway, that was that for number 1, and then we're going to move to number 2. Let me get my notes in order. And this is actually one that one of you mentioned they were knitting for their husband. And this is one of the reasons why I really love it when people share what they are knitting, is that you go and see the pattern. I mean, there's been lots of lovely things shared in the comments. This one went onto my favorites list for men's sweaters because I think it's great. So it's a unisex pattern. And let me start by telling you what it's called. It's called the Saglan, and that is a little bit of a word joke because it's a mix between a saddle shoulder and a raglan construction. But I'll get back to that in a minute. It's a design by, and I hope I'm not going to butcher that name, Ailbiona McLochlainn. If I say it really fast, then I can't make too many mistakes. And it's okay. The reason why I love this one, it doesn't look store-bought because you can't get these type of sweaters anymore. It looks like something from between 70 and 100 years ago, when construction was done really, really well and it was handmade, and you would wear this out on a walk in the countryside and you had a lot of money. It gives me not quite Downton Abbey vibes because it's newer than that. It's more towards Second World War type of fit. It's a little bit military inspired in how it looks because of all the shoulder shaping, and I don't know, it looks elegant in like a masculine way. It's not over the top, it's very simple. And I can keep on waffling, but I really like it. I think it's beautiful. It's a pattern that's been released in January 2023, so it's not the newest one, but it has 265 projects on Ravelry, attesting to its popularity. You can get it for €7.63. I hope you can't hear the dog snoring. It's not quite snoring, but sometimes he pretends to have asthma. I don't know what it is, but he's making a bit of noise. I hope the microphone is not picking that up. Anyway, it is knit on 4.5mm needles. That's a US 7, and the gauge is 18 stitches in stockinette. So if you have anything that matches that, you could be knitting this one. The suggested yarn, okay, they have an enormous list of what you could do. So if you want to see the entire list, go and check out the Ravelry page. I will link all the sweaters individually in the page, in the description down below. And I will also link the Ravelry bundle that contains all of these patterns. But some of the yarns suggested are Drops Alaska, so that's 100% wool, or the Drops Puna, which is alpaca, and also Let Lopi. And they have a lot more. What would I do? I think, so you could go for, again, a worsted weight. So the Rerum Natura Gilead that I'm using would be really beautiful on this. But if you want to make it a little bit cozier, you could also go for a DK with the mohair. Or if you want to make it nice and warm but without all the fluff, especially if it's for a man, which is what we're talking about today, then you could also use, for example, Sanders Garn has the alpaca Folgertrad, which is a lace weight alpaca yarn that you use as the second yarn. And so it doesn't add fluff, but it adds a bit of warmth and a little bit more weight, of course. I think that could be really, really nice to do that. And then you can also play around with the colours a little bit by doing that, because you can choose 2 different colours. And then, okay, Archie is laying down after a very, very hard day of lying on the pillows and sleeping. So yeah, I think there's quite a nice few ideas there, but yeah, I love working with Pegint, so that's probably what I would do with a mohair if it was for myself. If it was for my husband, I would pair it with the alpaca forward thread, because I think that could be really nice. Or I really love the Room Natura yarn that I'm using, so something like that. Anyway, back to the actual pattern. It has 10 different sizes, which I love, and the finished garment bust circumference, I will get there, ranges between 92 centimeters to 162 centimeters. So there's plenty of that in there. And I forgot to write down how much positive ease it is supposed to have. Let me check if I can find that quickly. Okay, so I didn't write down how many centimeters of positive ease it is supposed to have, because the original is supposed to be knitted with a... However, they also have this fingering / sport weight version that has been added, and that is included. So if you buy the pattern, you now get 2 versions of this sweater, and they've only added the amount of positive ease that the model is having with the fingering / sport weight sample, and that is 15 centimeters of positive ease. It doesn't say it for the other ones, so that is a little bit difficult to say. Also, I'm realizing now that it only has one picture of a man wearing this, but this is a very typical masculine construction. So the pictures are going to be a bit crappy in the sense of showing you a man's sweater because it's a woman wearing it. But trust me, this would work. So yeah, back to the pattern again. It comes in English, and so the construction, as I said, the name is a play on saddle and raglan, Saglan, and it's because it's a hybrid between the two. So I think you start with a saddle shoulder and it flows into a raglan to create that beautiful shape. And it is shaped with increases. And I'm telling you this because there's another version of this one, which is called the Ventzel, and that one has full saddle shoulders. So if you prefer to go for that instead of this hybrid construction, you can. And that one has short rows for the shaping instead of the increases that this pattern has. So there you go. If that's what you would prefer, then you can also go for that one. On to the Loom Sweater, which is our third one. And Archie's being quite loud. I really hope the microphone doesn't pick this up, but he's kind of snoring or breathing very heavily. Anyway, the Loom Sweater is a pattern by Andreas Ruthemann, sorry. And at first glance, this looks like a very simple, classic pattern. You don't see anything special. However, if you take a closer look, you'll see that the cuffs, the collar, and the hem have this beautiful, it almost looks like, I had the word, I forgot the word, where's the word? It looks like a woven technique. It's not, but it looks like it. And so it has beautiful finishings. So it's not going to be in your face, fancy cables or whatever, but it's going to be very subtle and it looks really, really beautiful. And so it's not your typical sweater. This one was released in July 2024. It has, I can't read any new glasses already. I'm getting old. It has 65 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you €9.81, and it is knitted on 5mm needles, so that's a US 8. The gauge is 16 stitches in stockinette. So once again, we've gone to a pretty big yarn, so that's lovely. And then what they suggest is to pair several, so they don't suggest to use one yarn to do this, but use several yarns together. So what was used in the sample, there's two samples, is Isia Alpaca 3 paired with Jensen, and if I'm not mistaken, I couldn't quite find this, but I think it's 2 strands of Jensen, 1 of alpaca, or the other way around, but I think it's 2 and 1, or the Rerum Natura Ulysse, which is the little brother of the Rerum Natura Gilead, paired with Berenice, which is the mohair of the Rerum Natura. And I have to say about that mohair, it has a little bit of wool in it as well, and it makes it just a little bit more bouncy, not quite fluffier, but a little bit more bouncy. It has a little bit more volume, I would say. And it's really, really nice. So if you want a mohair that has that, then it's great. If you want something that is much thinner, then there's, for example, there's La Mana Premia. That is a much thinner mohair. There's a lot more meterage in 25 grams than on the Rerum Natura Berenice. So just putting it out there for what you want to use. I don't have any other suggestions. I think these suggestions are great. I think if you use Ulysse, you could also substitute for other thick, like it's a DK-ish yarn, so you could use anything else. And then size-wise, this is one that doesn't have a huge size range. It has 7 sizes, and it ranges in, once again, bust circumference of the finished garment between 110 centimeters and 140 centimeters. So not exactly ideal. That size is supposed to be worn with 15 to 25 centimeters of positive ease as well, which, if you have a larger body, doesn't leave that much space with the sizes that it has. So I'm sorry about that. It comes in English, Danish, and German, and the construction is fairly simple. It's a top-down raglan, and it has German short rows for the neck shaping. So there you go. Then on to the next one, and only when I put together this bundle and was making the notes for this video yesterday evening did I realize that I included 3 patterns by the same designer. This is the first one. This is the Cosy Hubby by, and I hope I'm not going to butcher that name, Marzena Kolaczek. And I did wonder, should I take 1 or 2 out? But they're all really nice sweaters, jumpers, pullovers, whatever you want to call them. So I kept all 3 in, and so here we go. First one. What I like about this one has a very casual vibe. I think it's the only one that, well, it looks like a hoodie without the hood. If you would want something like this one with a hood, Evgenia from Nicotina Knits did a video about men's sweaters, I think like a month ago, maybe less, I'm not sure. Anyway, she had some great choices in there as well. So if you want to see other things that what I'm talking about here, go check that out. I will see if I can find a link and add it in the description. But she has knitted a sweater with a hood for her husband, and it looks amazing. It's quite a small gauge, but it looks really, really good. Anyway, back to the Cosy Hubby. This one has been released in July 2016 already. It has 300 projects on Ravelry, and it would cost you €10.32. It is knitted on a fairly small needles, 3.5 millimeters, so US 4, and the gauge is 23 stitches in stock in it. The suggested yarn is a yarn I don't know. It's called Julia Celine Fino, and that's a blend of merino, cashmere, and silk. I mean, it looks like a very nice, flowy, drapey fabric, so that makes sense. I think any fingering weight yarn as long as it's not a light fingering, should work for this one. Maybe what would look nice, because if it's very, very flowy, I don't know how masculine that comes across. So maybe what would work is the tin Peer Gynt. So that is the thinner version of Peer Gynt by Sandnesgarn, and that is lovely. I'm using that to knit up the Agneed cardigan at the moment. I mean, with a very fluffy mohair, so can't quite compare it. That might be, it might even be a little bit on the thin side, but pair it with the alpaca Fogeltrag, for example, it could work quite well. Or maybe a mix between wool and a bit of cotton to add just a little bit more weight, make it a little bit sturdier in a way. And then it can also be worn in the transitional seasons. I don't know, just some ideas. For the sizes, it has 7 different sizes. Not a huge size range, I have to say, but it ranges between 92 to 130 centimeters for the finished garment bust circumference, and it's only supposed to have 8 centimeters of positive ease. So it's a little bit more already than the previous one in terms of what can fit in there. It comes in English and in Polish, and the construction is top down. They are German short rows. Oh, I don't know if they're German short rows, but they are short rows for the shaping. It's a raglan, and I think it does mention that it has double knitting. I'm not sure. It looks like the sleeves, the cuffs are like folded over, and the hem as well, and that it's the collar where it needs to have the 2 strings. That is the part that is double knitted, but it doesn't say in the description that is the case. So that is just from looking at the photos and trying to analyze where the double knitting is and what the cuffs and the hem are. So yeah, there's that. There's also a women's version of this one. It's sold separately, or on Ravelry you can buy them as a bundle and then you get a discount. Then you only pay like €3 extra, I think, a little bit over that, and then you get both. So if you want matching jumpers with your husband, brother, father, whatever, you can. And then on to the next one by Marzena, and it is the Lumberjack. It doesn't say sweater or anything, it's called the Lumberjack. And I mean, look at this one. It almost looks store-bought. It's perfect. I really like a shawl collar like that. My husband doesn't like them, so this was not an option for him. But I really like them. I think they look really good on men that want to wear them. I also like this little detail for the button. That is, I think, the only part that is crocheted is the little loop to pass the button through. It says it has a tiny bit of crocheting in the pattern, but it stresses that it's very, very simple. So I think that's the one little part. So I think we can do that. We can all handle that. Anyway, onto the stats of this one. It was released in August 2020. It was released in August 2015. It has 332 projects on Ravelry. It would cost you €10.32, and it is knitted on 4mm needles or US 6. The gauge is 21 stitches in stockinette, and the suggested yarn is once again the Julie Asselin yarn that I don't know. It's the Lazu DK, and that is a blend of mostly merino and a bit of bombix. And I forgot to look up what bombix is. No idea. I'll look it up and put it on the screen if I remember. And what I thought what would look really great for this one is, okay, I'm getting a bit boring, but Peer Gynt and one of their tweed versions, they have this light grey one that's already a little bit melange coloured, and it has little tweedy flecks in it, and it's gorgeous. So yeah, that's what I would do for this one. It would be very simple, but just add just a little bit of interest in the fabric so that it's not that simple. Size-wise, once again, could be a little bit wider of a size range. It has 7 sizes and it ranges between 84 to 125 centimeters for the finished garment circumference, bust circumference, and it's supposed to be worn with 10 centimeters of positive ease. It comes in English and in Polish, and once again, this is a top-down construction. It has short row shaping. It doesn't have a lot of details on the page about what the construction is exactly. It looks like a raglan. If you look at the pictures, it's like a V-neck collar, but there's the raglan lines on the back and the front of the shoulders. So yeah, that's all the info I got. Then on to the last one by Marzena, and it's the Kookaburra. And I really love this one. Okay, I'm a sucker for texture in knits. One, because I think it's really beautiful, and second, because just stocking it gets a bit boring at some point. For me. If it's not you, that's amazing. But I like to have something that keeps me just thinking just a little bit, most of the time. And so yeah, it's a very simple looking sweater, so at a distance you would not see this, and then the closer you get, the more details you're gonna see. And I think it's called the Kookaburra because the top part of the sweater has this texture that is supposed to mimic the plumage of the bird. So yeah, I thought that was quite creative and very well done. This one has been released in January 2023. It has 58 projects on Ravelry and same price as the previous one, €10.32. It will be knitted on 4.5mm needles, so that's a US 7, so we're getting to the slightly bigger gauge again. And then the gauge is quite funny. It's 20.5 stitch in double seat stitch. So the half is a little bit interesting, but I mean, yeah, why not? Once again, a yarn that I don't know. It's the one in the sample pictures is called Ainsworth and Print Highland DK. I mean, any DK will probably work for this one. If you want it to be a bit more wearable for summer, go for a bit more plant-based yarn options. If you want it to be very warm, you can do that. You could even play with color with 2 fingering ones, or sport weight with, once again, an alpaca forward thread, or add a mohair if you want to have a bit more fluff. So yeah, I don't have a specific yarn in mind that would be perfect for this one. No, I don't. Once again, 7 sizes, ranging between 83 centimeters and 165 centimeters. So suddenly the range is much, much bigger, which is nice. And the amount of positive ease that this sweater is supposed to have is between 5 and 15 centimeters. It's lovely. So newer patterns seem to include more sizes. That is amazing. It comes in English and in Polish, once again, and this is a top-down seamless construction. It has a set-in sleeve with short row shaping for the cap. And then the one thing that is like different from most sweaters, I would say, is that you start with one front panel, other front panel, join, knit to the underarm, and then you pick up the back. Whereas for most sweaters, at least that I have seen, like patterns or knitted myself, is you start with the back. But in this case, you do that the other way around, and then when you knit the back, you add the short rows for the back as well for the shaping. So there we go. And then on to the next one. This is the Call of the Wild Pullover by Patrick Griffith. And I really thought this was going to be the one that my husband would choose because he loves the mountains. And I mean, look at it, it has mountains on it. It also, I like that it's a mix of colors, but also textures. if it was just colours, it could be a little bit child-ish, maybe. And this way, I think it's gorgeously done. It's also this way, you really get on a really bright winter day when there's snow on the mountains and the sky is really light. You get that effect that is like, is it mountains? Is it cloud? Is it the sky? And this really brings that to me a bit. And I really like it. So yeah, I really like that he played with texture and not just color. So I think that's very smart. This one is also a relatively new pattern. So it was released in October 2025. It has 32 projects on Ravelry at the moment, and you could get this one for €9.90. It is knitted on 5.5mm needles, that's a US 9. We are continuing the trend of going back up the needle sizes. And the gauge is 20 stitches in stockinette. And you also have to do a second swatch for this again. So it's 20 stitches as well for the other swatch, and that would be done in 1x1 half twisted broken rib. So you get to swatch twice for this one. The suggested yarn is Farmer's Daughter Fibers Pishkun DK. Once again, I don't know this one, but a heavy DK, light worsted weight would be great. Maybe something, I mean, with the texture, I'm wondering, do you want to go more rustic? I would maybe not go for too rustic. I don't know, I'm really divided. Or you go full rustic and it's really cool. You could go for like a let low P kind of thing. Or you go for something with a bit of silk in it. I don't know, I can't really explain why, but looking at these pictures, I'm like, it could be a really nice effect if there was just a little bit of sheen in there. But I can't explain why. I don't know, just a feeling. For sizes, there's 10 sizes, guys. This is like perfect. So it ranges between 81.5 centimeters to 187 centimeters for the finished bust circumference. And it's supposed to be worn with 10 to 20 centimeters of positive ease. So, I mean, this is amazing. It comes in English, and the construction is top down. It's a round yoke. It does mention that it has German short rows for the shaping. It doesn't say where exactly, whether it's just behind the neckband on the yoke or if it's just after you split for the sleeves. I don't know, but they are in the pattern, so that's nice. This is also a pattern that says it's unisex, so it's not just made for men. It has been created by a man, so I guess he took that body shape into account. I mean, it's the case for every designer. You're going to design based on what your body is like, because you know what fits your body, what your body needs, what works, what doesn't work, and so it will always be inclined towards a certain body type. That's, I mean, this is going to be a whole other discussion, but that's why petite knit patterns have a reputation for not being very well graded for the bigger sizes, because that's just not what she is. But that is an entirely different thing. We're not going to talk about that today. Maybe some other time. So yeah, I think for men this is going to look awesome, and I love the mountain design on there. But this is not the one that my husband decided to go for, and so I thought he was going to go for the next one, which I really wanted to knit because it looks awesome, and then I could have stolen it as well because it would look great on me too. Because once again, it is a bit of a unisex one, although I think it looks a lot better on a man than it does on a woman. But still, I could still steal it if I wanted a very big cozy jumper. This is Finest Kind by Alicia Plummer. And this is a perfect knitted sweater, if you ask me. I really, really like it. It has texture, but it's simple. It's very classic. I like that it has little details like the rolled hem, not just a hem, but the rolled edges. It's not just, rib. It's like a little bit different. Yeah, this one really scratches an itch. I really like it. It was released this year in April 2025. It already has 321 projects on Ravelry, so this is a popular one. You can get this for €8.91, and it is knitted on 5mm needles, so that's US 8. We are going back down with the needles, I'm sorry. The gauge is 16 stitches though, in seat stitch, so that's lovely. That will still go quite fast. And the suggested yarn is once again a yarn I don't know. It's a yarn by Harrisville Designs Sheer. It's Welshcroft Dorset Aran. Never heard of it, but it looks great in the pattern, in the sample. What I would suggest for this, an Aran type yarn. If you do like a worsted with a mohair, it's going to lose some of the defined texture, and that's almost too bad. So I would go with an Aran, and I have 0 suggestions for an Aran. I'm very sorry, because I've never knitted anything in that, so I'm lost. If you have any suggestions, please put them down in the comments so that you can help other people and so I can learn as well. That would be lovely. On to the sizes. It has 12 sizes, guys. This is like the best one. It ranges between 92.5 centimeters to 204.5 centimeters for the finished bust circumference, and it is supposed to be worn. So, if you want to achieve the fit that is in the sample pictures, then it's supposed to be worn with 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease. But of course, you can do more. Just pick a bigger size, and there you go. It comes in English, and the construction is bottom up. It is seamless, so you join the shoulders with a 3-needle bind off, and then you pick up the stitches from there to knit the sleeve top down. So it has a bit of bottom up, but it also has full sleeves that's top down. So not too bad. And once again, in terms of like structural integrity of the piece, it kind of makes sense. So I think we should go with that. And then the last one, that was not really supposed to be on this list. Yeah, how do I explain this? Let me start at the start. This is the Spot Regular by Anna Ventzel. And I was planning to knit this for myself. This was going to be my very first colorwork jumper, and it's all over colorwork, so I mean, great. But it's just 2 colors, so I thought, okay, it doesn't look too bad, and it looks like you're not going to have super long floats at any time. So I thought there was a I wouldn't say easy, because colorwork is never going to be easy at first, but a safe-ish start into colorwork. And so this was on my list for winter knitting, because it looks very cozy, very nice, but very warm. And yeah, I tend to knit for whatever season I'm in and not start in time to have it ready for the season that I want to wear this, because I'm an awful planner. But I was looking at this and looking at gauge and yarn types, because a couple of weeks ago we were in France, and at least the Sandnes Garn yarn is quite a bit cheaper over there, and I wanted to see if I could get the Pegint to fit for this one or not, and then I would have ordered while we were in France. And long story short, I was looking at this, and we had just been talking about which sweater I could knit for my husband. I mean, it's going to be his birthday in a couple of months, and so I need to start knitting on his birthday sweater relatively soon if I want it to be finished or close to finished for his birthday. And then he saw this one, and he liked this one, and so I'm going to knit him the men's version of the Spot Regular for his birthday. And so I thought I should include it in this pattern roundup, because I had not saved it as a men's sweater. I had saved it as the women's version, but it has a men's version. So why not? Here it is. Yeah, and okay, the reason I really like this, he likes this because it looks like lots of tiny little mountains, and because it just looks really good and it's very simple, and it looks like a nice shape as well. I really love the color work because it's very timeless. Also, there's a mohair version of this, but like a different stitch count because mohair is of course a lot less elastic than wool. So for example, for the neckband, you're going to need to have a few more stitches to fit your head through the hole. And so I thought that that's really thoughtful that you sort of get two versions in one pattern. And okay, let me get to the stats before I keep on rambling on this about this. This was released in January 2025, and it's been on my Ravelry favorites basically ever since. It has 84 projects on Ravelry, and it would cost you €8.37. It is knitted on 4.5mm needles, and that is a US 7. The gauge swatch is 22 stitches in the colorwork pattern, and the suggested yarn is Felcolana with Panilla, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment, or is a yarn with soft silk mohair. And the way this is done, so with the Felcolana yarn, that is the mohair version, and so you would use 3 strands of the tilia, so that's the mohair, for the main color, and then 1 strand of the Panilla, which is a wool or a merino. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a wool. Don't pin me on this. But you use that yarn without a mohair for the second color. And so you get all the fuzz from the mohair, but the actual color pattern is quite well defined because it's not with a mohair, and so they don't mix as much. And it's the same for the Isaiah yarn. So you use the Jensen with the soft silk mohair together. So this is the wool version without the super mega fluff mohair version. So Jensen together with the soft silk mohair. So Jensen is quite a rustic wool yarn, and so that's your main color, and then your second color is just the Jensen. So your second color is a little bit thinner than your first color. And that's the part where I'm not sure if Peer-Gynt is going to work, because then it will be the same. Well, no, because I wanted to pair it with a mohair for myself. But I want to check out, because my husband doesn't really want it with mohair. He doesn't want to have lots of fluff on him. He wants a very simple one. And so I'm going to have to do quite a bit of gauge swatching for this and try it with just the Peer-Gynt without any mohair and see if it works, if I can hit gauge for him. For me, it's fine because I can pair it with a mohair. I already know what I want. Sander's Garn has put out a few new colors for autumn, and one of them is, I think it's called Vintage Gold, and pair that with like a natural wool color, so like the off-white. I think it's going to look amazing. And I have quite a bit of like almost golden colored mohair from Knitting for Olive. I think the name is Dusty Honey. Pair that with it, and I think it's going to look awesome. But yeah, so for the non-mohair version, which is not in the pattern actually, I'm going to have to try a few things. Anyway, back to the pattern. I'm sorry for the interlude. This one comes in 9 sizes, but the size, like the bust circumference range in there is not enormous, I would say. It ranges between 93 centimeters. It ranges between 93 centimeters to 136 centimeters for the finished bust circumference, and it's supposed to. So for on the male model, the positive ease is between 6 and 10 centimeters. So, okay, you can fit with a bust up until 130 centimeters, but so that's not a huge size range. I think this was designed with women more in mind, and Anna Ventzel never has a super big size range. But I think with the men, it's like, okay, but they have in general slightly wider shoulders, so we have to account for that, and so that's why the size range for this one is not ideal. It looks great on her husband. whatever size he is, and it doesn't look like the skinniest man in the world, so I mean, looks fine. It has a lot of languages. Bear with me. It's in English, Danish, French, German, Italian, Norwegian, and Swedish. And construction-wise, it's fairly easy. It is a top-down raglan. So that's the easy part of this one. And that's it. I think, have I missed anything? Oh yeah, there's one more thing. Okay, not about this pattern. There's one more thing I want to mention, but it's a pattern that hasn't come out yet. It's in testnet, and it's by a fairly new designer, I think, or at least this is his first or second sweater pattern, I think. It's from Bart Smet, which is Bart Knits on Instagram, which is how I encountered this one. And he's designed the Henry sweater. And it's something that I do not have in this list. It's a V-neck, and it's a beautiful classic V-neck. And it looks awesome. It's not something that my husband would like. It's not his style, but it's really beautiful. I would almost kind of want to knit something like that, especially in that colorway, for myself. This is that Sanders Garn Peer Gynt tweed yarn, and it's awesome. It's so beautiful. It's a bit cool toned, which is not what works best for me, but this is a really cool one. So I wanted to mention this one, and I can't remember when the pattern is supposed to come out. If I can find that, I'll put it on the screen so that you can put that in your calendar if you do want to get it. I couldn't find a lot of details about it, but I mean, just look at it. It's beautiful. Okay, that was my last little honorable mention, lookout kind of thing. And this brings us, thanks so much. Sorry for that. And we keep going. Lovely noises, Archie. This is really brilliant. Amazing. Anyway, this, with the lovely interlude from Archie, brings us to the end of this video. These are a lot less patterns than I normally have. But I'm sorry, there's a lot less patterns for men's sweaters around than there are for women. So I did my best, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found some in here that you do want to knit. Let me know down in the comments if there is some that you are going to get, if you are going to knit anything for them. And also, I always like to know what you are currently knitting on. Sharing good ideas with the knitting community is always welcome. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. That is a very nice little feedback loop so that I know that you've enjoyed it. And then I guess I will see you next week, 5 p.m. on Friday, as usual. It's probably just going to be a knitting update. I've got quite a bit done on my test knit. I hope to have the body finished by next week, but we'll see. So yeah, I will see you next week. Have a lovely weekend or a lovely week if you see this a little bit later. And as always, happy knitting. Bye bye.